Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Sherlockian interview. We have a very special one today. It's one of my favourite authors, a guy called Harry DeMaio. He's got one of the most amazing brains, who's come up with an absolutely amazing series of books, the Octavius Bear series. Hi, Harry. How are you doing?
Fine. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. Where are you dialing in from?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, Ohio, right?
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, it's a beautiful sunny day here in London. I don't know what the weather's like in Ohio.
It's a sunny day in Cincinnati, but it's in the middle 40s. It's still, March is still with us here.
Yeah, yeah, we call it fresh here. Yeah, it's sunny. It's sunny but fresh. So in my intro there, I talked about Octavius. I'm going to have to leave it to you to explain. I usually explain it like this. Imagine if Sherlock Holmes was a bear. That's how I kind of started off with people. But if you can give us an intro.
Sure. Octavius is actually a bit of a hybrid, Steve. He is taken off on Sherlock Holmes, and he has a sidekick by the name of Maury Meerkat, who is one part Watson. But Octavius is also partially a takeoff on Nero Wolfe. Actually, that's where the name came from. Nero Wolfe, Octavius Bear. And Octavius, like Nero, is oversized in all respects. The bear is a super genius. He is a gazillionaire, and he is also a criminologist of the first order, a consulting detective not unlike Sherlock. And as I think I ought to tell you, I have actually written a story for Derek Ballinger in which Octavius and Sherlock get together as a result of a phenomenon that I keep describing in this series. Back 100,000 years ago, there was a major catastrophe on Earth, and they ended up with Homo sapiens being wiped out as a result of a solar flare that pretty much the same as happened to the dinosaurs at one point. The net result of it, however, was not only that Homo sapiens disappeared, but that animals generally started to advance, both socially, mentally, even physically, and grew to pretty much be anthropomorphic in their characteristics. And Octavius is a prime example of that, as are some of the others that are, part of his entourage, the Octavians, as I call them. I started this idea really more because I had my previous writings had all been kind of formal nonfiction. I was the director of information security for both Deloitte and Touche and for IBM, and wrote several books on that topic. I've been writing since I was a kid, but I decided once I retired back in the early 2000s, I was going to write a bunch of screwy stuff, go for tongue-in-cheek and things of that type. And so I decided to create this world where Octavius is the Sherlock Holmes, if you will, of the anthropomorphic animals. And from there, it started to build out, and now there are 10 books. I'm working on number 11. And he has an entire entourage of sidekicks, also some bad guys who are in the same mode, and that's how it's happening right now.
I don't know if anybody's ever mentioned this to you, Harry, but there's a science fiction movie series that's running at the moment called Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's a
Yes.
couple of characters in there that really remind me of some of the characters within your book. So I think if for those that haven't read any of your books yet, if kind of some of the animal characters that have bit sort of human behavioural traits, that anthropomorphic, you say it much better than I do, kind of format. I think that kind of lift would be a way to describe it for people.
Yeah, there's. I've gotten some input from a number of different sources saying that these books might make excellent animated films, but that is a very tight environment and rather difficult to break into. Nonetheless, there's sort of that general spirit of off the wall humor. These I've characterized these books as alternate universe mysteries for adult animal lovers, but I've also characterized them as a combination of fantasy, combination of mystery, and a combination of humor. And that's what I've been trying for. And I think, and you've got the open and shut case up right now. Very funny exploits. I thank the reviewers for that, and I've been trying to keep that up as we go along, using the characters on the screen right now. You're seeing Cheetah, who is a reformed ne'er-do-well, who is now one of the principal characters. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite characters. There's a wolf there, Frau Schuylkill, who the Schuylkill River, by the way, runs in Philadelphia here in the United States, just south of the Hudson. And so I decided I would take Mrs. Hudson and change her into Frau Schuylkill. The polar bear that you see there is the wife of Octavius. She is a baroness, Baroness Belinda Baronese Bruin Bernie Black. Try saying that fast. And the little one down there in the middle is his sidekick, Maury Meerkat. I've picked Maury because he's only 24 inches tall and weighs in at close to 24 pounds, whereas Octavius is 9 feet tall and 1,400 pounds. So they are sort of set off against each other. The little black character that you see down there in the lower corner is Imperious Drake, a very, very, very terrible individual. And they are all tied into that sapphire, the deep blue sapphire, which you mentioned on the slide here, stolen from a Chicago museum. Imperious lasts all the way through to book number 5, and then is killed, oddly enough. I probably shouldn't be giving this away, but is killed off by our friend Cheetah as he tries to set up another world in Egypt where he can conquer all the pharaonic individuals who worked for the Pharaoh 6. And that's the end of him, but he lasts through 5 books and creates all kinds of damage and mischief.
Well, I'm sure we won't drop too many more plot spoilers as we go through the books, because I'm sure the fans will want to read through from book 1 through to book 10. I wanted to highlight here just how popular book 1 has been with the fans. So 31 reviews on Amazon, and virtually all of them 5-star. So 4.8 out of 5 stars is very high for a book series. And as you mentioned, the theme of very funny comes out under all of the books. And if we look at some of the supporting cast of characters, I think one of the things that jumps out for me, Harry, in the books is there's dozens of really intricately drawn characters across the 10 books, both the good guys and the bad guys. There's some illustrations. There's about a dozen, I think, illustrations of some of the characters, so you get to kind of visualize them. Mm-hmm. But do you want to lift out maybe a couple of your favorites?
Well, as I said, the 2 that we're looking at right now, Maury, who is sort of like Archie Goodwin, the sidekick of Nero Wolfe, but also has a lot of Watson in him as well. He's the narrator. He carries the stories along and is a source of some of the humor in the books. And he's always complaining about the fact that people pick on him because he's small. Cheetah, I mentioned before, and you can see the diamond necklace that she wears all the time. Cheetah is used to the good life and periodically appears in each one of the books as a result of something that she's just done. She's a model. She's a singer. She's been involved in a number of Imperious Drake's pranks. but he and she had a falling out, and that was the end of that. Baroness Belinda Bernays Bruin Bear is now the wife of Octavius, and I don't think I'm giving away too much that in one of the later books they have a pair of cubs, Arabella and McTavish, and which is a takeoff on both of their names. But these three characters dominate the books all the way through, and they're still there and will be, I guess, as long as the series continues.
Yeah, I think we talked about the humor within the books, but we shouldn't portray it as being a light series. It covers some quite challenging things, and there's some really nasty bad guys in the books as well. So there's no shortage of murder mysteries within the books. This is books two through four. Do you want to maybe lift out maybe a couple of items from these two books in terms of your former career? Because I know you used to be a pilot as well, didn't you, Harry?
Yeah, I was a private pilot, and I I couldn't pass the physical for the Air Force, so I ended up in the Army instead. But I decided one of these days, by God, I'm going to learn to fly, which I did, and have flown for some time. Now, unfortunately, I am too old to pass the physical, but I look back fondly on my days at the controls of a series of light aircraft. Belinda, on the other hand, the wife of, well, first of all, Octavius has an Air Force. He has four airplanes, fixed-wing airplanes, plus a very, very luxurious helicopter. Belinda, on the other hand, flies the last known SST, the Concorde. And she is accompanied by two of her Bear associates and now two other flying Tigers in flying back and forth between her castle in the Shetland Islands and Octavius's lair in Cincinnati, Ohio, partially supersonically until she gets to the the mainland of the United States. So airplanes and aircraft generally play a fairly large part in my books.
I was going to jump us through to the next four books because in addition to aircraft, technology plays a really big role in all the way through. And I'm going to jump on the suitcase here as the first time Ursula appears. This is really close to my heart, having worked for a artificial intelligence company for a couple of years. So tell us about Ursula, who is an AI unit.
Yes, well, she's actually an AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is a couple of cuts above normal AI. The independence. Think how in 2000, the computer that went a little cockeyed, but he was an AGI as well. Ursula is now a steady person in every one of the books from the suitcase on. And she progresses. Each time she comes out, she started out as AGI 7, then on to 8, then on to 9, always one number below the number of the book. And in each case, she's improving in her capabilities, both her ability to do multitasking and to be a number of different places at the same time. She also has very, very high level of predictive capabilities. She has algorithms that she uses to take up probabilities, and she is, generally speaking, Little Miss Omniscience, which is what Maury started to call her after a while. She appears any place that she can come up, on a laptop, on a screen of a smartphone, and generally speaking, her capabilities are improving with each book. I am taken up with her. Of course, I worked for IBM since 1956, and then worked for Deloitte and Touche as their director of information security. So I'm very much computer oriented as well, not tied directly to AI as you have been, but nonetheless, AI actually fascinates the heck out of me. The other thing that is, the whole idea behind alternate universes is part and parcel of all of these books as well. And the use of both telecommunications and the ability to teleport is inherently part of the whole series.
If we jump to the current book, so the basket case came out last month, and it's centered around sport. Although Octavius isn't into sport himself, the coach of a basketball team who went to school with him. So this is the head coach has asked him to investigate a murder. So
Right.
how did you come up with a storyline around basketball?
Well, part of it, Steve, is I keep going back to things that go with case. The case of Scotch, the open and shut case, the attaché case. And I came up with one that said the basket case. And I needed something that would really allow me to capitalize on basket case and not just a basket. I was originally thinking of baskets of fruit or flowers, and that just didn't have anything particularly punchy in it. And it occurred to me, hey, basketball. Let's play that particular game, and it also gives us an opportunity to get to New York City, where I lived most of my life, and to play up the whole professional basketball activity here in the United States, which of course is catching on throughout the world. As a matter of fact, there are more basketball players in Europe than there are in the United States.
Yeah,
But
I think basketball fans are really going to love this book because it's obvious that you're either a fan or you've done a lot of research, is what I would say on this one, Harry.
well, a little bit of both. Both college basketball and while I was in New York, I was a New York Knicks enthusiast. Unfortunately, Cincinnati doesn't have a professional basketball team, but we have an immense number of college basketball.
Hmm.
And right now, in March, while we're having this interview, the March Madness is going on in the United States with all the colleges. So it's something that I'm very much interested in both directions.
It's a very fast paced game. I was
Yes.
speaking to a technical colleague of mine now, and the monitoring of the players technology is playing a huge part in basketball now. The telemetry, they can actually monitor the movements of the players and actually work out that the player is slowed down by, say, 3%.
Yep.
Needs to be swapped out. So it's quite incredible how technology is coming into all of that. And technology comes in again in book 10, which comes out in September.
Yeah, before we leave book 9, I just wanted to mention one other thing about that, and that is that the two teams are made up of very, very tall individuals, both ostriches and giraffes. And I thought, okay, if anybody's going to play basketball in this anthropomorphic world, it's going to be those guys who are, very, very tall, very, very large, and very, very quick. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take you off your.
Oh, no problem at all. Uh, so if we jump onto book 10, which comes out in September, so
Right.
this is the camera case. So we've got a
Look carefully at that cover. On the right-hand side, there is a horse, and he's wearing a deerstalker, and that is Fetlock Holmes, the great horse detective. And he's an associate of Octavius, and he's appeared in several of the books, I think since book 7. And he makes an appearance and contributes to the thing. And you can also see a drone up there.
Yeah.
Uh, there are two polar bears there. One is a star or an ingenue, I should say, of the motion picture that is being shot in the camera case, and the other one is a matinee idol. The guy on the left, Pavel Preston Pavel Polar. He's a Russian movie star and a matinee idol, and the panda is a cinematographer. And of
So
course,
So the one thing that strikes me really, Harry, is that this entire series is really quite out there in terms of I can't think of any other Sherlockian type adaptation that comes anywhere close to a series like this, and it's a big series as well with 10 books. But for the traditionalists that are listening into this interview, thinking, "Well, this is quite a long way away from the traditional canon." I really wanted to highlight that you do actually write traditional Sherlockian pastiche as well. So in the forthcoming MX book of New Sherlock Holmes stories, which is edited by the extremely strict David Markham, who doesn't tolerate any non-traditional, non-canonical writing, you've got a story coming up in part 14.
That's right. I decided I would give a shot at writing well, there's no such thing as a typical pastiche, but as a pastiche that follows the canonical line. Yeah, the other thing that David is a chronologist, and he is very, very strict about not being, out of line from a time standpoint. And the book that I wrote fit into the late 1895, as a matter of fact. I've written another one that is going to be coming out in a later series called The Murderous Mercedes. And that one is in 1901, just before Sherlock retires.
And
It's
and that one's coming in that one's coming in the fall with the next batch of the MX collection. This is coming out in May
that's it.
22nd for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's birthday, and there's 3 volumes, volumes 13, 14, and 15, which are running now on Kickstarter at the moment. So you've got another one coming in the autumn, but I also understand that you've done some more fantasy type stuff for the Bellingers in terms of steampunk.
Yes, I did one for the Bellingers in which Octavius and Sherlock Holmes come together to take on Professor Moriarty. And what essentially happens is that there are two alternate universes involved. One is the alternate universe of Octavius, which we call Earth Alpha. And then there's the alternate universe of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, which we call Earth Beta. And Holmes is unaware of the Earth Alpha, which in chronological sequences is about 125 years ahead in development over the time of Sherlock Holmes. But nonetheless, its history matches very, very closely to the Earth Beta, the one of Sherlock Holmes. So I've sort of mapped the two of them, one on top of the other. And lo and behold, both Maury and another little character called Otto, or Otto the Magnificent, who is, oddly enough, an otter, and our friend Ursula all come to play with Sherlock in taking on Moriarty one more time.
Fantastic,
Moriarty
fantastic.
is threatening both universes, and that's how that works its way out.
Fantastic. I'm sure the Benedict Cumberbatch fans will be extremely happy that you've got an otter
I think
featuring
so.
in that particular book. But it's proven to be an extremely popular format, that Sherlockian steampunk. So I'm sure there's going to be more collections. So it remains for me just to say thank you so much, Harry, for the interview this afternoon. This is the 10 books, all the covers on the screen now. And as you said, book 11 is on the way for spring 2020.
Yeah,
Do you plan to keep writing more with Octavia? You seem to have a lot of fun with him.
oh yes, I'm enjoying myself no end here with Octavius, and I've developed a very, very close imaginary relationship with the characters. So I'm having fun. It's keeping me off the streets. And as long as I'm around, I'm in my 80s, but as long as I'm around, I will be pumping them out. The next one is called, by the way, The Worst Case Scenario, but worst is spelled WURST, and it has to do with artificial meat.
Oh, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you very much, Harry. Enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to many, many more books with Octavius Bear.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the time that you've taken.